Hey guys and gals, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk Little Witch Academia episode 23. We are 2 episodes off from the end. So anyway, this episode, overall, I think I think it's very easy to say I'm very happy with how this episode turned out. I did the preview video, and in the preview we knew that this was going to be an episode revolving around looking for Akko. And the episode unfolded towards that direction, and it was largely about looking for Akko and also trying to talk Akko back into doing her thing. Now, naturally, one of the best elements of this particular episode is the presence of Diana. She plays an incredibly pivotal role in this episode, and truthfully, I'm very happy that it is Diana getting that much. Well, not really attention, but that she had that much significance in the episode. And it wasn't another character like Lot or Susie. I think the way they use the characters in this particular episode kind of works out better overall. And just to keep talking about Diana, it's very obvious why Diana has the most weight in this episode. And truthfully, she is the one who should have talked to Akko, and thankfully she is the one that ultimately did, because Diana's coming from the same place that Akko was. I think they did something really smart, and again, this episode was one where it reminds us of the first episode, and also just it kind of rewards the viewer for knowing that Diana was in there in that first episode at Shiny Chariot's show, and then this episode gives us the context to what actually happened, to how Diana got there, and it makes just the whole viewing experience just a little bit better for viewers who care about continuity, or viewers who do try to remember what happens in episodes. So Diana there is just like the ultimate reward for viewers who are paying attention to that particular character's story arc. And Diana's use in this episode is pretty much like one of the best anti-frustration features that an anime could have, because with Diana, you easily get into a situation where Akko can't simply ignore what the other person is saying, because we could have that situation unfold relatively easy. Like if Akko doesn't understand that the other person knows what she's going through, she's way more likely to not want to actually listen to the person, and that's just something that normally happens with people. So Diana coming in there and coming from the same base that Akko did, it's just it just makes things less frustrating and just makes that conversation unfold. And Akko does try to pull that maneuver in the episode with the drama. She tries to build up the drama and saying, oh yeah, Diana, that's just because you're incredible. That's why you were able to get back your magic. And then Diana's just reaffirming, no, it's because I tried hard enough. So, it's good. Diana was the perfect counterbalance to all the drama that Akko was going through. And I say counterbalance, but I really do mean it from a more sympathetic point of view. Really, I'm very happy that Akko has someone who understood her fundamentally and understood whatever struggle she was going through. Because again, Diana is a character who also cared about Shiny Chariot. And to actually talk about that, I do think it was quite big of Diana to mention that she felt that Akko cared more about Shiny Chariot than she did herself. But it's still that foundation. The foundation was still there, and it made Diana a very valid point, or made all of Diana's points very valid when it came to trying to talk Akko out of doing whatever she was planning on doing, like leaving Luna Nova. Now, the conversation between Diana and Akko takes up quite a bit of time. It's quite a good chunk of the episode once we get towards the second half. And so beyond just saying that this is just a generally good moment, really it is just a generally good scene. I really can't speak more about that particular scene besides just this is the ultimate reward to see these characters conversing at this level. So to talk about other parts of the episode, because again, Diana was still on a roll for the majority of the episode. She's the one that's moving things along. She's the one that's mobilizing the girls, sort of. She's the one that's organizing them to some degree. And to just on that point, it's pretty cool to see all the misfits working together to look for Akko. That was just a generally good moment with Susie, Lot, Amanda, Constance, and Jasminka. And now that I see Jasminka in this episode, I remember the poor girl didn't get her own, her own feature episode. But that makes sense because the girl doesn't have that much personality that Trigger has kind of expanded upon. Even in the original OVAs, just because she doesn't get that much attention. We only know she eats a lot. What else do we really know about the girl besides she's a pleasant person? So it's unfortunate to see that continued being the thing for this adaptation. But what can you do? Anyway, not the point. Hopefully we'll get like an episode for her, maybe in the Blu-ray release. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe they'll do an extra episode. I think Kill la Kill had an extra episode back in the day when it came to the Blu-ray release. So maybe we'll get that for this character. Anyway, Diana had another really powerful moment in the episode, and that's when she's like just chewing into Ursula. And you know what? At this point, Ursula really deserves it. Ursula was also a chunk of the episode with her flashback, and I'll talk about that at the end. But more on Diana, because Diana is just being awesome. So I really do like how Diana ended off that conversation with her saying that she's the most disappointed she's ever been in Ursula, just for what she did to Akko on that day. And it's just, yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Whatever she did in her past, you know, mistakes happen, and justifiably so when we find out in the actual flashback. But what she did to Akko, or what she lacked in when she handled the Akko situation in the previous episode, what she didn't do. That's the phrase. What she didn't do. You know, I ultimately think Diana had all the right to say that to Ursula, and that kind of just culminates Ursula's character arc. It kind of just like puts the problem with Ursula's character, or you know what? It's not a problem. It's a flaw. It's different when it's a problem. Problem is like something that's more of a meta level. No, Ursula's natural flaw is just she's very apprehensive as Ursula. You know, Shining Chariot is very apprehensive as Ursula. If you were to characterize her flaws, it's specifically she's the character that gets there too late, or she's the character that doesn't speak up when she has to speak up. Those two flaws lead into a lot of the problems that Ursula causes for herself. So, you know, the moment that Diana is saying it, it feels really good just because that's the summation of where Ursula falls as a person. It's just her inability to act when she needs to act. And that may be justifiably coming from what happened with her Chinese chariot career. Again, props to Diana for saying it like that, because that was just excellent. Probably my favorite line of the episode. And now we're going to shift into talking about Shining Chariot, because we see a good chunk of the flashback. So the flashback does some pretty interesting things. On a lower detail, it kind of puts an interesting time frame for when Shining Chariot was active. Like, I didn't know that Chariot was active, or I didn't realize that Chariot was active while she was still in school. So that's a very interesting thing to see. And then we get to see the uglier side of show business, that people just got they just generally weren't interested in her magic, and so she had to one-up herself every time, and that caused a vicious cycle. And we also get context to what was going on with Dream Fuel Spirit. Is that how it is? Dream Fuel Look, man, I don't know what it's called. I'll just call it Dream Fuel. Anyway, Dream Fuel magic. Last video, I spoke that it would be interesting to see what exactly got Ursula to the point where she would rationalize that this was a good thing. But this episode just gave us a completely different reasoning, and it ultimately just makes what Ursula said in the last episode, it frames it more as Ursula just felt she was really guilty of this thing, even though she wasn't exactly the one that caused, or she wasn't exactly totally responsible for using that particular method of absorbing magic or whatnot. So in this flashback, we find out it's Kroa who set it up. It was Kroa who gave Ursula this magic, and she just withheld the information from Ursula. Didn't tell Ursula this magic had negative effects. It had repercussions. She just legitimately didn't know. And so what this ultimately does, it does take away some of the weight that Ursula might have had overall in terms of the things she has done. And because now it kind of turns Ursula into slightly a victim. Like, she's still the one pulling the trigger, but at this point in time, she didn't know that she was pulling the trigger for a gun, effectively. So, you know, you end up having this situation where it's like, yeah, I did a pretty shitty thing, but when it comes to viewers, you know, it's like, well, she didn't know what was happening. And so she's a bit more redeemable, because now her action isn't painted as this is just gross irresponsibility. No, this is just a girl thought her friend was helping her out and just made a really bad decision because she was not aware of all the actual parameters going into that decision. So what does that really ultimately accomplish for us? Well, it removes interesting character point, and it instead gives us something that's easily resolvable and something that shouldn't really affect people's view of Ursula more than what Ursula's already done. Now, interesting things about Ursula's run as Shining Chariot, and specifically her downfall. It's interesting that the dream fuel magic, whatever, was what Ursula was using to power her shows and making those really incredible displays of magic. Like, that was pretty interesting. And it was also interesting to see that the thing that ultimately scarred the moon was Ursula just got really, not annoyed, she got really desperate for attention and just shot at the moon. That was a display of power, and truthfully, thank God that Croa went in and made everyone just forget that ever happened. I would like to know what exactly would have been the ramifications of such an action, like scarring the moon, but who knows, right? Like, if you took the most cynical approach, you would say, well, people would think, well, that was just a display of military might. If someone got their hands on that girl, it would just be, they could destroy stuff, right? But we don't know how cynical Little Witch Academia's world would be when it comes to those particular aspects, because the world just hasn't defined it to that degree. That said, still an overall pretty cool episode. I really enjoyed Diana in this episode. Diana's really my highlight. She really just rocked out in this episode. I appreciate the flashback. It was cool to see where the friendship started to break apart between Croa and Ursula, and it was cool to see how desperate Ursula, or Shiny Chariot, had gotten when it came to her showbiz career, and just how she, it's kind of cruel. Like, audiences stop caring about you, and then you fade into obscurity, and then you do that one last thing to like try and get that fame back, but it turns out to be that giant mistake that no one ever really wants to talk about ever again. Some people want to forget about it, So overall, it was a pretty elucidating episode. Ursula's heading off to see Croa. We got Akko back. The seventh word is still on the loose. We saw Ursula's failings. Yeah, last two episodes, gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting to see where we go. We know from the foreshadowings that we still have to deal with the town on fire and people rioting. So yeah, we'll have to see where that goes as well. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a great day.